Hi there, Coach Alexa here. I wanted to talk to you today about the kind of plethora of energy drinks, energy gels, energy bars, supplements, for training with whilst you're actually running that are on the market at the moment. I've had a few questions, I think, particularly in the build up to the spring marathon season about which ones to choose, whether they're worth it, how to go about understanding the kind of huge array of stuff that's on the market. So I thought I'd just talk that through briefly. There's a few different reasons why you want to go down the road of taking on board something while you're running, particularly, but it becomes important or even more important when you're running longer. There's a few key and very important and very scientifically based reasons why you'd want to do that. The first one is hydration, so actually taking on water. You want to make sure that you're not getting dehydrated when you're running, particularly when you're running long. A small increase in your levels of dehydration can actually have quite a dramatic effect on your performance. You would also be looking at some form of electrolyte replenishment, so that's basically salt, predominantly sodium and potassium. Becomes more and more important when you're looking at, again, long runs, and particularly as we're coming into the summer, as you start sweating more. Some people don't need these electrolytes. Generally, if you're you notice that you're the sort of person that sweats quite a lot when you run, particularly if you end up with those kind of little tide marks on your top or your shorts, kind of white sort of salt lines, or you get that kind of slightly salty, kind of crusty feeling on your face, perhaps. That's a sign that you're losing a decent amount of electrolyte as you run, which is effectively salts. So that's a sign that it's useful things for you to be taking on board. The other key kind of reason for taking on these sort of sports drinks and gels and bars and things is the fuel, which is effectively carbohydrate in the form of different types of sugars. So that's another sort of ingredient that you can look for in what these energy bars and drinks and gels are trying to give you. One thing to look out for on the packets of these different products is where they're getting their sugars from. So glucose is kind of a good old-fashioned table sugar. There are other different sugars that kind of get put into the mix. Sucrose, for example, is a slightly more complicated version that your body then has to break down into glucose. You can actually get forms of sugar that come from dairy products. And another one that's being added in, fruit sugar, is a fructose. And because it's a fruit sugar, it sounds like it's going to be really good for you. Actually, majority of us have a slight level of fructose intolerance, or a certain level of fructose intake. So you do need to be a little bit careful with how much fructose you take on during the day, particularly in these kind of sudden influxes of fructose into the system that you can get from some energy gels. So that's something to just worth bearing in mind. So what are the positives of all of these different branded products? Well, a lot of them there's a lot of research that's gone into them, and they're carefully kind of concocted to give you a bit of a mix of the electrolytes, the different sugars, and the hydration element if you're talking about sports drinks as well. So, they have got those three key things in them that you're looking for. They'll have them in different balances as well. So there's an interesting kind of mix of whether they've got more carbohydrates per volume of water. So whether they're going to be for fueling, so you could have just a sports drink without having to have energy gels or any food, or whether they're actually just a mixture of water and electrolytes. So they're not going to fuel you, but they're going to keep you really well hydrated. So look at the packaging in a little bit of detail and see what they've got in them, and what the sugar balance is, the electrolyte balance is, and whether or not that's going to work for you. They're also really nicely packaged normally for ease of use, so they're quite easy, like gels, for example, to sort of stick in a pocket, take with you, and they're quite kind of fuss-free from that respect. You can come up with your own alternatives though, because there are some downsides to these products. Quite a few runners will experience stomach issues, and a lot of that is due to just the sudden intake of sugar on your system. So an analogy I often use is if you're running a marathon and maybe it's taking 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, if you were to just sit on a sofa and eat energy gels every 45 minutes for 5 hours or 4 hours without including running in the mix, you'd probably still feel a little bit yucky at the end. So, you know, it takes a little bit of experimentation to find out whether these products really do work for you. They cost quite a lot as well, and actually you can come up with the same balance of things using other alternatives. So to keep you hydrated, water, cheap and easy, and you know, comes out of the tap. From electrolyte balance, just adding a little bit of a pinch of salt to your water is a really great start. You can get specific sort of rehydration tablets, salt tablets, either to chew or to put in your drink. Just getting the ones for dodgy stomachs from the chemist actually can work out cheaper often and has exactly the same stuff in, because they're doing exactly the same things. And then from the fueling point of view, you know, if the gels and things like that work for you, brilliant. But there are alternatives there as well. Effectively, all you're looking for is sugar. So things like jelly babies and sweets, you know, sort of chocolate bars, energy bars that are, you know, have got quite a lot of sugar in them these days. Things that if you're running longer, you want to look at maybe a little bit more long release, slow release energy in there. So energy bars that are oat based for a bit of quick and slow release energy. A lot of people are going down the route of savoury foods now. So maybe looking at crisps or pretzels or little bits of wrap that you take with you and tear off and eat. Loads and loads of different alternatives out there. Possibly a little bit less logistically easy, but you can, you know, make cut up bits of flapjack into little bite-sized chunks, take those with you. So lots of different alternatives to try and achieve the same ends. Hope that helps.